They released millions of frozen bees into the Sahara. In early 2025, a convoy of refrigerated transport units crossed the southern fringe of Algeria, moving through a landscape that most global datasets still classify as low-value ecological terrain. On satellite imagery, the region appears almost uniform, but field surveys tell a different story. The Sahara is not a single continuous desert. It is a mosaic of hamadas, gravel plains, dune systems, and intermittent oasis corridors shaped by ancient hydrological networks that still influence subsurface water distribution. The cargo inside the convoy was not conventional agricultural equipment. Each container carried dormant honeybee colonies maintained at approximately 4 degrees Celsius, a controlled temperature designed to suppress metabolic activity and reduce mortality during long-distance transport across arid heat zones. The operation was formally registered as the North African Pollinator Stabilization Initiative, coordinated between agricultural ministries in Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, and Mauritania, with advisory input from European entomology research groups. Public communication initially framed the project as an ecological restoration effort, though internal documentation defined its objective more narrowly: to stabilize pollination continuity across fragmented agricultural zones along the Sahara-Sahel transition belt. That belt is not static. According to UNCCD monitoring datasets, parts of the Sahel have experienced a southward shift in aridity gradients, ranging between 5 and 10 kilometers per year over recent decades, influenced by rainfall variability, land use pressure, and vegetation feedback cycles. The biological material selected for the project was not standard commercial stock. Researchers instead prioritized heat-adapted strains of Apis mellifera originating from arid zone populations, including lineages closely associated with A. m. sahariensis and A. m. lamarckii. Controlled trials had demonstrated that these colonies could maintain structural hive integrity at ambient temperatures approaching 45 degrees Celsius, provided intermittent water access, and partial shading conditions were available. Deployment sites were concentrated in degraded oasis corridors across southern Algeria and northern Mali. These are transitional ecological zones where groundwater still exists at depths ranging from 20 to 80 meters, but surface vegetation has degraded significantly due to long-term rainfall reduction and grazing pressure. Pre-deployment satellite analysis from Sentinel-2 and MODIS platforms had already identified fragmented vegetation signatures along historical wadi channels. These were not stable ecosystems, but short-lived vegetative pulses triggered by rare precipitation events, typically collapsing within weeks due to insufficient pollination continuity and moisture stress. When the bees were released, there was no immediate ecological response. Field technicians operating in the Tamanrasset corridor reported low initial foraging efficiency. In multiple zones, individual foraging distances exceeded 3 to 5 kilometers due to extreme floral sparsity, with ground-level plant density in some sampling grids measuring below 0.2 flowering units per square meter. Early colony attrition rates reached approximately 38% in the driest test corridors, higher than initial predictive models had estimated. At this stage, the program was already under review and pressure from funding bodies. But within a single seasonal cycle, remote sensing data began showing unexpected structural changes. Narrow vegetation bands appeared along established wadi channels. These bands measured roughly 30 to 70 meters in width and extended farther than comparable historical vegetation events recorded over the previous 2 decades. Importantly, these were not continuous green expansions. They were discontinuous, spatially segmented growth zones forming in repeating patterns. This is where the field coordination data from Dr. Salem Rue became central. Roux was assigned as Field Systems Coordinator for the Tamanrasset Corridor, operating out of repurposed hydrogeological stations originally constructed in the late 20th century. These stations were partially degraded, relying on unstable solar power systems and requiring frequent manual recalibration due to thermal stress on battery storage units. His primary task was to synchronize ground telemetry, hive activity, mortality rates, and foraging range with satellite-based vegetation datasets. Operational data collection was only reliable during a narrow daily window between approximately 5:30 and 7 o'clock local time, before surface temperatures exceeded 34 degrees Celsius. Beyond that threshold, external bee activity sharply declined as ground temperatures frequently surpassed 47 degrees Celsius during peak seasonal cycles. Monitoring stations aligned along the 23 degrees north semi-arid transition boundary. Soil moisture sensors registered marginal but consistent increases in subsurface humidity retention, typically between 1.5% and 3.2% above baseline desert control readings. Initial interpretation classified these deviations as potential calibration drift. However, spatial clustering patterns suggested a non-random distribution aligned with zones of sustained hive presence. Additional calibration checks were initiated across 6 stations after Roux escalated the anomaly to the Regional Coordination Unit. These checks included manual probe verification, cross-referencing of satellite-derived NDVI indices, and resampling of soil conductivity at varying depths between 10 and 60 centimeters. What complicated the verification process was the inconsistency between surface-level dryness and subsurface retention readings. In multiple locations, topsoil conditions remained fully arid, while deeper layers showed marginal but repeatable increases in moisture retention capacity. Hydrologists noted that this pattern did not align with recent rainfall events, which remained below statistical variance thresholds for the season. At Station 14B, located along a degraded wadi tributary east of Tamanrasset, technicians recorded a subtle but persistent increase in nocturnal humidity retention within hive-adjacent zones. The variation was small, within fractions of a gram per cubic meter, but it persisted across multiple independent measurement cycles. Roux's field notes flagged another operational irregularity. Foraging return rates during early morning cycles were stabilizing faster after heat disruptions than predicted by mortality-adjusted models. In standard desert conditions, post-heat recovery typically required multiple reproductive cycles. Here, stabilization was occurring within days. This did not indicate system recovery in the conventional ecological sense. Instead, it suggested localized resilience pockets forming around active pollination corridors. No formal conclusion was drawn at this stage. The data was marked as non-explanatory convergence pending long-term validation. The most disruptive environmental event occurred during a late summer heat surge lasting 5 consecutive days, during which exposed surface temperatures exceeded 49 degrees Celsius in multiple basins. Several colonies entered forced clustering states, reducing external activity by nearly 60%. Emergency water distribution operations were initiated through local agricultural networks, though response times varied significantly depending on terrain accessibility. In some zones, intervention arrived after ecological stress thresholds had already been exceeded, resulting in partial colony abandonment and localized collapse. However, post-event analysis revealed a more significant pattern in recovery behavior. Within approximately 10 days following the heat wave, vegetation regrowth along monitored wadi systems accelerated beyond seasonal baseline expectations. This increase was not in total coverage area, but in germination density per unit surface area. Roux's internal field documentation described seedling emergence patterns as spatially clustered around zones of sustained hive density. The report explicitly classified this as correlation rather than causation, a distinction that later became central in peer review discussions. Independent ecological surveys conducted in the Hoggar Mountains region recorded increased germination rates in drought-resistant species such as Acacia tortilis and Panicum turgidum. Soil sampling indicated modest but measurable shifts in microbial activity within rhizosphere-adjacent zones, though rainfall data remained statistically unchanged from long-term regional baselines. Secondary ecological effects began emerging within the same monitoring window. Camera trap systems deployed for unrelated biodiversity tracking recorded shifts in nocturnal movement corridors among small mammal populations, particularly gerbilis species, which expanded their range along newly formed vegetative pathways. This was followed by secondary predator presence, including fox populations that had previously shown reduced activity in those regions. Avian migration tracking added another layer of complexity. Several Palearctic migratory species altered stopover behavior along trans-Saharan routes, favoring regions with increased insect availability. The defining variable across these changes was not temperature or precipitation, but localized insect biomass concentration. As datasets accumulated, researchers began reclassifying the system behavior from isolated pollination intervention to partial ecological connectivity restoration. By the end of the first full annual cycle, 3 primary release corridors exhibited a stable structural pattern in vegetation recovery. Growth was not continuous across space, but organized into repeating ecological nodes. These nodes corresponded closely with modeled bee foraging ranges and hive persistence zones. When hive telemetry was overlaid with vegetation distribution maps, a consistent spatial correlation emerged. Zones with sustained pollinator activity demonstrated significantly higher rates of plant regeneration and seedling establishment than adjacent areas with comparable soil and climatic conditions. Importantly, this did not indicate a transformation of the Sahara's climatic system. Annual precipitation remained below 100 millimeters across most monitored zones. Temperature extremes and aridity thresholds remained unchanged. What had changed was the internal connectivity of biological processes operating within those constraints. Previously isolated ecological patches were now showing measurable functional linkage through pollination networks and seed dispersal continuity. The Sahara remained a desert in climatic classification. But in ecological system terms, it was no longer fully disconnected. And in long-term monitoring datasets, that distinction was the first statistically significant deviation from baseline collapse trajectories recorded in over a decade of regional observation.